Hello, everybody. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Alexia Poon, and I am in the Kinesiology, Health, and Athletics Department. I'm an adjunct faculty as well as the women's soccer coach. I'm really excited to talk with you all today as we go through this wellness series and mindfulness series to kind of bring more awareness to not just ourselves, but the clientele that we're working with, our students on campus, and even our colleagues, to just be more awareness or to be more aware of our surroundings and kind of be able to catch certain cues when things may not be going the way that they should. So last week Marcus discussed trauma-informed practices. And I just wanted to take a few moments to go through that before we touched on a few things that we can add to the classroom and maybe to bring, just more awareness, like I mentioned earlier. So last week we touched on trauma-informed practices. We talked about trauma-informed education. So with that came discussing the importance of understanding that trauma can slow down or completely stop the ability to learn. So students who have been impacted by anything traumatic in their life, and again, I would say about 90% of the time, this is something we don't know and we're not aware of because we get into the classroom and kind of the first thing to do is to hit the ground running and start talking about our syllabus and student learning outcomes and the expectations for the course. And we don't get that opportunity to connect with each of our students other than, I know for me, it's like, okay, everybody go around the room, tell me a little bit about yourself, your name. And I would say about 99.9% of the time, every student is shy and they're just like, hi, I'm Alexia. I'm taking this class because it's a prereq and I want to be a nurse. So we don't get the most out of them when we get to know our students. So something that's important just to kind of make note of that I think is really important. And even it's a reminder for me is that trauma can slow down learning and students can fall behind. And sometimes when we see students falling behind, it's always more of or I know for me, I'm somebody who reaches out directly to my students and I'll say, hello, is everything okay? Is there any way I can help you? Can I provide you with any extra guidance or show you into the direction of a tutor if that's, can pertain to the class? So every instructor is different, but I know for me, through my experiences, that's how I interact with students that are falling behind. And through that, I get to learn a little bit more about the student. So something to make note of. We also discussed understanding how we can address this in the classroom, or how we can interact with a student that can make like an impact. So we discussed retention and student success. So something that's really important. We also talked about what happens to the brain during trauma. I am no expert. My background's in kinesiology with a hint of psychology, but I am no psychologist or psychiatrist. So I feel like I can't dive as deep into this subject as I would like, maybe one day. But when trauma is regenerated in the student, I hope I'm not going off notes here, there's a psychological and a chemical change that occurs. So this is even something that's discussed when you think about students or faculty members, family members who are struggling with a mental health disorder. It's usually a chemical imbalance. So almost like a surge of adrenaline when you're in a stressful situation and you prepare to fight or flight or freeze, which that's something that we will discuss here in the next few weeks. I won't get too much into that. But once the stressful situation might seem to go away, our body takes some time to get back to like regular heart rate and regular hormonal chemistry and things like that. So this is a topic that we'll talk about in a few weeks, but just something that you can make note of how what's happening to the brain during trauma or post-trauma. We also talked a little bit about how to assess like something that can trigger trauma. So there are certain things that can happen in a situation, environment that can trigger someone's trauma. And I guess I can share a personal story that may be too personal, but I feel comfortable enough sharing this. But like something for me that's traumatic that has happened in the past year was I suffered a loss, a miscarriage loss, my husband and I, and starting a family was something that we've really wanted and something I guess I never really expected. And actually, it really pained me deeply. And I'm currently expecting, which is amazing news, but every day I'm experiencing some sort of traumatic event that triggers what has happened in my past. So although things are great and I'm healthy and my future newborn baby is in there cooking, something can happen. Like I'll see something on social media that will, I don't know, like a pregnant woman getting COVID, for example, that will put me on edge and I will just think, oh my gosh, do I have COVID? Is something going to happen? So there's certain things that trigger me that bring me back to the trauma that's happened in my life. So I guess when you think about our students, if they're in overwhelming situations, there can be things that trigger that trauma. And it could be the littlest minute thing that can be simply a loud sound, a door closing, so just being aware of those stressors that can trigger our students is something to be aware and conscious of. So with that, we're going to kind of talk about like the next steps and things that we should recognize when students might be in this response. We need to be able to provide them tools so they can recognize this response and how to regulate it. So I know for some, we can be thinking, well, we're not, like I mentioned earlier, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I don't feel comfortable doing things like this, but as instructors, faculty members, counselors, whatever your role may be in that student's life, we should be aware of the tools that we can provide for them if we cannot directly provide those tools for them, if that makes sense. So whether that's pointing them in the direction of, a counselor, or just even simply asking like, how are you? Are you okay? But we'll dive deeper into that in a moment. We'll go ahead and just move on real quick. So like I mentioned, being able to recognize trauma or when a student is stressed or if something's going on in their lives is really important. So before we talk about things that we can do, just a few simple things that I like to do and things that I recognize. I'm just going to share a few experiences with students that I've had. Their names will obviously remain anonymous. I've been in education now for 7 years. Doesn't feel like that long, but I'm getting there. I'm sure a lot of you have been in education much longer than me. But I work with student athletes daily and obviously students, but a lot of my big connections are with my student athletes, because I have this philosophy of the person is greater than the athlete. The person is greater than the student. So making sure to really get to know each athlete and each student is incredibly important to me because of the things that I've faced with my student athletes. So I'll go ahead and share just something that might be useful and, So a couple years back, I started a new coaching role. I was very nervous. as anyone probably would be when they make a career job change. And I'm getting to know my student athletes. And there was one student athlete who I have known since she was actually a little girl. It just kind of so happened that she decided to play for the program, and the program I took over. And I was really excited because I knew her mom. Her mom is amazing. And I just automatically felt like I had a connection with this student because of me knowing her since she was a young girl. Now, we didn't stay connected over the years. We didn't talk regularly at all. It was one of those, I knew her when I was teen-ish, middle school, and then now she's a young adult. So anyway, I'm being observant, and she stopped coming to class and practice, and she wasn't communicating with me. And I just thought that was very odd. So as a coach, attending practice is usually something, or class practice is usually something that's pretty standard and you do every day because you want to play in a game or you want to start in a game. And we have expectations as coaches, just as we have expectations for our students. But I guess where the difference kind of lies with classes and a sport is, for some, maybe if they notice a student isn't coming, it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe they dropped the class, or maybe they're just not interested. And I know for me, when I was a student, some of my classmates didn't show up and somehow managed to pass the class. And I was like, I am envious of you. I don't know how you do that, but awesome. So anyway, with athletics, you don't see that as much. You don't see student athletes constantly missing practice or showing up late and kind of just, I don't know. So one day I decided to reach out to her just to make sure things were going okay. And she said, yes, coach, everything's going fine. I'm just really busy with school and work. Totally understandable. Academics come before sports, and I 100% support that. But what was odd to me is usually she'll share with me, like, I'm struggling in a class, I'm going to miss practice because I need to do X, Y, and Z. I need to go to tutoring, whatever it is. Well, the next week goes on, and I'm like, I need to bring her into my office, and I just want to see how she's doing and connect with her a little bit deeper. So she decided to come into my office. And I usually always have someone with me, or the door open, or I let our dean or somebody higher up, I guess, know that I'm meeting with a student, just because I want to make sure that I'm not crossing any boundaries or they're leaving my office distraught. You just always have to cover your bases. So I think that's something that's important too when you're bringing students in. And I just asked, are you okay? And she just started crying, and a whole thing unraveled, and she was not okay. She was struggling. She felt like she went through something traumatic, and that is something that I'm not going to share, but it was very, very traumatic. Nobody knew about it. And she needed help. She needed someone other than me to help her because she was not headed in the right direction. So I was able to provide resources for her that we offered on our campus. And I will note this, at that time, she was not of age. She was 17. So because I'm a mandated reporter, I had to report this. And it was really hard to do because I didn't want to lose that level of trust with her. But I had to do what I had to do and report the situation because at the time she was not of age. Anyway, I'm happy I reported it. I'm happy I provided her with resources because she came out stronger in the end. She's going to therapy. She's doing what she has to do to be successful. She has the support of her family. Things that I couldn't support her fully with. So I just want to share that little story, just kind of how it's important to be observant of your students, even though you may not know them 100%, or maybe you know them and you think, oh, heck, they're fine. which brings me to another story I want to share. And I hope I'm not going rogue. I just think it's important to share stories and experiences so we can kind of see from the outside in, inside out, that there's things that are happening around us and we think that nothing's happening. But sometimes it could just be a minor thing that a student does that can maybe like raise your eyebrow and be like, I can help them. And you will be able to save that student. So today is what, March 3rd. On March 1st, there was a student from Stanford, very successful student finishing her senior year, who played on the women's soccer team. And I'm sorry I keep going back to athletics, but this is very fresh. And I think it's impacted a lot of people outside of athletics as well. Well, she is a very confident woman, a role model to many young women, a role model to people like me who don't even play the sport anymore. I just coach it. And she lost her life to suicide. And I know for me, I'm impacted by it big time because I was watching her play over the years. I watched her go to the national championship. I watched her on TV, like just be so confident she was a goalkeeper. Her name's Katie Meyer, if you want to look at the story or learn more about her. Just an amazing woman who you would never think would be hurting and having so much pain inside, because all you see on the outside is this strong woman who's like a warrior and influencing young women and people around her to be strong and to advocate for yourself and to be the best you that you can be. And she took her life, and it was so sad to hear and to see all of the people that it's impacted. And nobody knew. No one knew except for Katie, who was hurting. But it was because she presented herself so strong. So I think something that's really important for us to do as faculty members, colleagues, is to always check in, just an even, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? Can make somebody's day go from really dark to rainbows and happiness and smiley faces. So going into transitioning into things that we can do when we think about being in the classroom is to create a safe space, an environment where we're building trust and trying our very best to get to know each of our students, each of our colleagues, friends, family members, all of that stuff. Get to know them, create a safe space. When you think about academics and incorporating more mindfulness, you can do things like taking small breaks within your lectures. And I know we only have a small time with our students, 90 minutes, an hour. For you bio instructors, I know it could be much, much longer, but being sure to provide like a break, time for the student to breathe. And not only that, but just check in with the student, see how they're doing, is one thing that you can do. We can also play things like music. Classical music is great. Even like yoga music without the words. It's more just like, what am I thinking? What am I trying to think of right now? More like sounds, like rainfall, things like that can really help students connect and relax deeply with themselves. I know for me, I listen to that every day. I'm a pretty anxious person. So I have to take like a second sometimes just to pop in my earbud, open Spotify, relaxing music, and I just breathe, which we'll get into in a second as well. Leaving space for reflection is really important. So I know in my classes, even in my sport class, I always have students reflect on how they're feeling mentally, physically, emotionally. And I don't make them do it every day, but I create a space so they can do that. And sometimes students are like, I feel fine. But there's other students who dive deeper and, like today was a good week. I was able to learn about mitosis and meiosis. I don't know. That's just an example. I don't teach that stuff. So, just creating a space so students can reflect, whether that is them handwriting something, putting it into their phone, or just giving them a moment to reflect on how they're feeling and what's around them, what's going on. Something else we can do is breaks within the week or within the semester. Sometimes things get really heavy. It's been a while since I've been in school, like I'm talking about undergrad. And I do remember the feeling of being overwhelmed and feeling like I couldn't breathe. And I'll be honest, I'm a first generation student, so I just thought that was normal. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I'm a first gen student. Like maybe I just don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I shouldn't even be here right now. But then I'm thinking about it, a lot of our students are first generation. And a lot of our students, even if they're not, probably think that they have no idea what they're doing. So, just creating a little break, if it doesn't, cause any, I guess, bumps in the roads, hiccups within your curriculum in your class, could be something to do while being in the classroom. What else in the classroom? Oh, have an icebreaker before moving on to new material. Icebreakers can range from a lot of different things. It could just be getting to know each other, something like quick icebreaker, what's everybody's favorite ice cream, boom, 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 or things like that can help break things up. And I can assure you, you might think that students might think it's silly, but they'll be very grateful for the break and an opportunity to get to know their classmates and their instructor. So, things that you can do in the classroom. Those are a few things. In general interactions, like I mentioned, check in with the student, colleague, faculty. How's your day going? I know for me, I like to share experiences, hard days that I'm having or good days. I mean, I don't want the students to know my whole life, but I think it's important to also share and reflect myself to show that have the ability to be like vulnerable. I guess you can say that's really important. I know I taught an orientation class in the fall. And it was the most rewarding thing when I went through and I shared my life story of how I got to being where I'm at, because I think a lot of the time my students are like, oh my gosh, how old are you? Which I'm flattered. I'm very flattered that they think I'm the same age, 18 years old. But it's so fun to share my journey with them and kind of my background and the struggles that I went through. And they realize like, oh my gosh, I can do that. I can do it. So share how you're feeling as well, because most of the time students won't check in and say, Professor, how are you doing today? Some do, but some don't. So be vulnerable, share how you're feeling. Notice body language. Like I mentioned with my student who, I don't know, something was off, and you will see with your students when something is just not right. I like to study behaviors a lot, but that's just me. And sometimes it's like that intuition, that gut that tells you that something's wrong. So I would always say, follow that gut, follow that intuition, because usually it doesn't lie. So body language, voice, how's their posture? Are they like very tense and tight? Think about their voice. Is it shaky? Do they have more of a stern, angry tone to their voice? I know for me, sometimes when I'm upset, I snap and I'm short. And my husband will be like, are you okay? I'm like, yes, I'm okay. He's like, no, you're not okay. Listen to your voice. So being able to be aware of that, think about their breath and their breathing. Does it seem like their breath is labored? Are they breathing heavily? And usually those are some really good signs and indicators if something's wrong. So you can kind of ask that next question, how are you doing? Let's see, have resources. This is like the big one. Have resources. So, from knowing what we offer on campus to provide them with, like who they can go to, who they can talk to as far as counselors, the other things that we offer. And, we can show them things like on our website, which, let's be honest, everybody, sometimes it's not the most user-friendly to find things, as I know for me. And I'm like, if I can't find it, I don't think the student can find it. So being aware of how we can access those resources, having things on hand of like how to breathe, or even tools like, we have, what's the word I'm looking for that we're offering here? The shared Padlet, where Marcus and I and Halsey are sharing information that you can use, not just for yourself, but it could be beneficial to your students as well. So resources for breathing, mindfulness, how to take care of yourself. I also found this awesome TED Talk that I'm going to share on Padlet about breathing to heal. So how you can use the power of your breath to heal, which I hope that you guys will take some time to watch. It's a little lengthy, but I'll attach that to Padlet, which you guys should have access to. What else am I thinking? Campus resources, handouts. Yeah, just being more mindful in general. Provide choices. So sometimes if a student is struggling, give them options, give them things that you can do to maybe help them. And maybe it's not just them, like maybe they're struggling academically because of X, Y, and Z, but giving them the choice and options can help alleviate and ease any of that pressure, stress, trauma that they're experiencing and bringing to the classroom. Be supportive. That's always really important. Show your support. I know my professors growing up were very stern on deadlines and you got to get it in. And, we're trying to really teach and harp in on keeping students accountable and not letting them be, I guess, I hear some people say soft, and we need to kind of hold their hand. But I also think it's important to cater to the generation that we're working with. And I know for me, I guess I'm considered a millennial. Some say, oh, no, you're a Gen Z. I'm like, no, I'm definitely a millennial. And sometimes I'm bummed that I have to be like, pieced into that, but it's fine. I embrace it. But being able to cater to, and not cater, that's not the word I'm looking for, adapt to what we're working with, even though we may not fully agree with kind of like how their generation is doing things. So we have to be adaptable and kind of change our way of thinking and instruction so they can better learn and understand to be successful, even though I know that can be hard sometimes, even for me. So what else? Provide structure. Oh, most importantly, take care of yourself. I know for me, when I have interactions with students that, I guess like my one who I learned went through something traumatic and it hurt me a lot. Every day I was like, maybe I should have done something sooner. Maybe I should have recognized this sooner. Like I started to put blame on myself for my students or my student at that time who was struggling, and you can't do that. So you got to take care of yourself, and you have to be sure to fuel your own tank and do things that make you happy, whatever that may be. So those are a few things to do when thinking about trauma-informed practices, or just being more mindful, being more aware of our students, our surrounding faculty members, and such. With that being said, let's go ahead and go through a breathing exercise, something that you can do in your class. This can take all of 5 minutes. And then we'll go through a little bit of seated yoga, also something that can be done in your class that can help with relaxation, a little reset. No music necessary, just you, yourself, and your breath. So let's go ahead and get started. Everybody should be in a seated position, or even if you're lying on your yoga mat, or if you're lying on your couch, or however you are watching this right now. Let's go ahead and relax a little bit. So make sure your sit bones are in place and you feel comfortable, because we'll be seated here for a few minutes. So we are going to work on something called Ujjayi Breath, also known as ocean breath. I believe Marcus touched on square breathing last week. But Ujjayi Breath, I feel like, is probably one of my favorite breathing techniques. I don't know, I just feel like it just like releases all of the negative toxic energy that I'm feeling, or alleviates stress for me. So Ujjayi ocean breath. In your seated position, you can have your eyes closed, or you can gently gaze down. And I'm just going to talk you through this Ujjayi breath. So the idea of this breath is to inhale through your nose, hold at the top, and exhale out of your mouth like you are fogging up a mirror or a glass. So when you inhale, you're taking in a nice, big, full breath. And then exhale, like fogging the mirror. And if you think about it, it kind of sounds like an ocean. And, you know, if anything, I'm the one that probably looks silly right now because I'm the one breathing out. But I want you to go ahead and practice that a few times. So my apologies if you hear my breath, but we're going to go through this together. So eyes are closed, or you're slightly gazed down. Let's go ahead and inhale through our nose and exhale through our mouth. And go ahead and go through that a few times yourself. And try to be in this moment. This is really great if you're laying in Savasana or corpse pose and you're just like really trying to get relaxed. One more time together, big inhale and exhale. Good. So for me, Ujjayi just kind of resets everything, and it gives me a moment to just have some peace and be with myself. We'll do one more at the end, but I always like to say, inhale positivity, love, happiness, and exhale stress, negativity, tension, things like that. So we'll do that at the end before we wrap up. Last thing I wanted to do is just a little bit of seated yoga. It's nothing too crazy, but we're just going to kind of get our breath and body moving together. So we'll stay in that seated position, and you can even do this lying down, maybe not lying down if you're sideways, but we're going to go ahead and inhale our arms up nice and big, give ourselves a stretch. Exhale at the top. You can keep that Ujjayi breath, or you can just breathe normal. We're going to inhale, arms lift up out of that shoulder girdle, and exhale, bringing our arms down to meet your knees or to meet your chair, wherever it's comfortable. We're going to go ahead and drop our right ear to our right shoulder. Stretch out that neck a little bit. And if you want a little bit more of a stretch, you can just grab your left side of the temple with your right hand and just gently pull a little bit deeper. And back to center, release. Other side, left ear, left shoulder. If you want, you can grab that left hand to right temple and gently just give yourself a nice and easy stretch. And back to center. Let's go ahead and extend those arms out, interlace those fingers like this here, and kind of round that back, bringing that chest together, almost like you're squeezing your heart. And release, shake it out. We'll do one more of those. We'll come this way, here we go. Inhale, arms come out. And exhale. Go ahead and release and shake it out. For those of us that sit at a desk a lot and we're typing, and this can even be used with our students, like if you wanted to take one of those breaks in the middle of your class, we're going to go ahead and extend our hand out, like talk to the hand, and we're going to grab our left hand and just pull back our fingertips here, giving a nice and easy stretch in the forearm. And release. We'll flip it down, like kiss my hand, and just gently pull back. And release. We're going to go ahead and do the other side, left side. Extend that hand out, talk to the hand, gently pull back on those fingertips. And relax, shake it out. Flip that hand down, gently pull back. And relax. Good, back to center. Let's give ourselves a few nice big shoulder rolls, like really bring those shoulders up high, squeeze the shoulders up and drop them down. You can just roll those shoulders back and roll them forward on your own time, whatever feels good for you, whatever serves your body. And release. All right, here we go. We're wrapping up with that Ujjayi breath. One big inhale through our nose, inhaling positivity, love, happiness. And exhale, any stress, tension, negativity. And that is it. That is it for today. Those are a few things that you can incorporate into the classroom. We will continue to touch more week by week. I just encourage you to a few things. One, take care of yourself, fuel your tank, be aware of your surroundings, body language of students, and I encourage you to try to build a level of trust with all of your students and connection. And if you can always think of this, if this is kind of your motto, it doesn't have to be, or just always remember that the person is greater than the student. If we can get to know the person and dive deeper into who they are, I know it's hard when we have 100, 200 students, some of you, but get to know them, and even though it may not be super deep, just kind of have an awareness from day one and as they progress over the semester. So that is all for today. Looking forward to seeing you guys again. If you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, but we have provided a few things within a Google Doc to share with you guys, and we can all kind of collaborate together. Have a wonderful Thursday, and I will see you guys all soon.